only roughly. This, I mean, I don't know if people have been familiar with Pro Tools, but it looks pretty much like any other digital audio workstation. It's got the audio mixer, and then it's got what we normally start with in any track is, like most producers and DJs, I guess, is the rhythm section. You start with the bass drum, a couple of grooves like snare drum and hi-hat and all that stuff. After that, we'll do the bass line, so I'll strip it down here.
Just want to point out quickly, it's quite unusual to use Pro Tools in this way. Usually people use Pro Tools as for pulling like big audio stems and everything else. They don't usually do their arrangements in Pro Tools, but because really rubbish it is and everything else, it's kind of how it's worked for us. And each part is an audio part. We very rarely use the MIDI. We'll use it to play stuff in, but the MIDI delay is and the kind of sync between it's not so good. And then we'll record the audio on the MIDI part for the final mix.
So a customized mouse, which I find really handy, it's got 7, 8 different buttons, so I can sit and I can do this at the same time. quite nice. I don't need to use my other hand, because some people like to see the commands. I've got everything on the mouse here instead. And as you can see here, it's as Simon was saying, most of the drum stuff we'd like to put in audio, because it makes it a bit tighter. And then we have certain other things, we have like bass line stuff, just and everything in here. So this one, on this track, we're using 2 bass drums. We're using 1 high frequency bass drum, and then we've got like a lower frequency bass drum to give a bit more warmth and roundness on the lower end. Which quite helps, you can barely hear it, but on the big sound system you can hear the difference. It's quite a big difference. Because in dance music, the most crucial thing is the kick drum. If you have a good kick drum, you have a good track.
Everything else is forgotten about.
Yeah.
As long as the kick drum.
And yeah, throughout the track, we've got the tones, and the snare drums, and the bass hits. So I'll show you here. So this is probably what we just put. We put like a beat, drums down, and then gradually we'll build the track. What we do normally, we have all the drum channels we tend to have at the beginning of the track. And as we go down further down the mixing console, we'll have the bass, the synths, the melodies and everything else. And then as we gradually come down to the bottom of the mixer, we start having the vocal tracks. So all the vocals here, we have a vocal cut up with Steve Edwards. And then we just taking a snippet of this singing. This is probably something completely different. That's, I don't know, that's probably just edits from
And contrary to popular belief, he's not saying Pete Tom when the mix comes down.
So what we normally do, we set a loop of maybe 8 and 16 bars, and we do the groove in the loop, and then gradually we build from there. And then when we feel like we've got a decent section, we start building the arrangement afterwards. And we've got like a little effect going up. I'll show you what we've got. We've got like a little effect. Like showing up the frequency of the vocal, or the frequency shifter. So you have that elevating sound, this pitching sound. And on top of that, we're using like a delay and reverb to kind of have that little decay of the vocal. like audio track, return channels with reverb and effects, but now we tend to put all the effects on the actual track itself that we used to. And this is the delay we always use. We automate the feedback. So as gradually the track goes, you can see the feedback will go up gradually, hopefully. Yeah, on the end. Maybe not this one. Yeah, there you go. So that's all pointed. We have keyboards that we write optimization with.
It's an innovation.
Yeah. So we'll go through. As you can see, we're using quite a lot of audio tracks throughout the track. And some of them might just have one sound, like a little effect sound, something like that.
Now kicking up the beat, she freaks.
Then the bass comes in.
She freaks.
Bass.
She freaks.
The bass is actually from Vacuum. It's like a vintage synth from Protozone vintage synth, and it's just a standard bass sound. But another very important thing that we use a lot of sidechain compression, which probably most of the producers knows about. We assign a click from a channel, which we call click, and this one has a 4/4 click that sends out to all the compressions, so it makes it sound like it's pumping, basically. You can see the compression working even if it's not a sound. So it automatically works against the beat, so makes it sound like it's pumping, basically.
Makes his favourite word.
Pumping. And we use that throughout the track, on strings, on pads, everything. The same click goes to all the optimization that we want to sidechain to get that
breathing
feeling.
Do you always use 4/4 kick sidechain, or do you use different sidechain
Sometimes,
triggers?
it depends on what, for hi-hats, sometimes we use a slightly different sidechain. If you have like a 16th hi-hat, it's nice to have a slightly different groove.
Yeah.
But on most like long sounds, like pads, bass lines and stuff, it's good to have just a quite steady 4/4. Otherwise it gets too messy. If you have too many sidechains on too many different things, it gets messy. So it's quite nice to have a quite clean sound chain signal. Otherwise, sometimes you sit and just put loads of stuff. You think the more you put, the better. And then you talk, okay, it's actually less the better.
Less is more.
Yeah, exactly. And you have to be more selective on the actual sound. So you choose a good bassline sound instead of having, if I put 3 to bassline sounds, I probably yeah, and then the mix becomes really muddy, difficult to mix.
We are guilty of putting loads in our records to start with in our demos, and and then just taking away the stuff that works and feels good. And when as you mix, if you go along, you're going to get a bit more of an idea of how the feel of the record is. But we've tried to step away from 198 channel mixes and stuff like that.
It's when you record strings, you have a record and you track them several times, you have maybe 48 tracks of just strings, and then you have brass players and bass, and then start that up. But on this particular track, even if it's all electronic, still a fair amount of tracks, but it's a much more manageable track count compared to other tracks we've done. So I'll keep playing the track.
Giving up the beat, she freaks.
And the stabs again.
She freaks.
Well, they're quite. On this one, we have maybe 3 or 4 different stabs on top of each other, all side-chained as well. And sometimes we create, most of the time, we create sub-buses. So, for example, the same sounds or drums or pads like that, we put them on a different bus, so we can control that particular bus and EQ and compress that bus, even if it has a few sounds. But this one has 3 different stabs. So that's down to one bus. So it makes it more manageable, and you can use the same compressor for the 3 sounds, making it easier to merge with each other.
We're not talking too fast. If there's anything you don't understand, please go on.
I have a question. Can we hear the sound that you're using, that is muted and you're using for the sidechain compression?
Which one?
Click.
The standard-
Yeah, the click. That is, you said it's muted, and you use it for sidechain compression.
It's just a click. It's
Mentioner.
an MPC click.
MPC click.
Yeah, MPC click. Very straightforward. No, it doesn't. You can't have too much decay, because it goes too much decay. You know, the side chain won't be so responsive. It needs to be a very short click.
Well, that obviously depends on the kick you're using for your track, right?
No, we won't use the side chain for the kick. Most of the people use the kick as a side chain.
Okay.
But if you use the kick, it's all depending on how long the sustain on the kick. And if you have a wrong sustain, it tends to slow down the compression. So what you want is a very short signal. So then you can decide yourself on the release inside the compressor, instead of having a kick that is long in decay. It makes it a bit harder. And what we use here as well, which I find quite useful, it's actually, see if I can find it. The mixer is so small now, it's hard to see. Just this white noise. There. It's actually just a white noise from a synth, just playing the white noise, but it's edited in the way of the hi-hat. So for something to go a bit closer here. It's just white noise, and then it becomes a hi-hat. And it changes. And then just how to create hi-hats with just pure white noise without actually being a hi-hat is quite handy. You can do like small effects like just stuff like that, and then change it to 16. And what we do, this is all audio. When you zoom in closely, you can see the slightly shuffled to an MPC groove. We normally try to use an MPC groove of maybe 57–58%. MPC is, as you all know, is the famous old sampler that many hip hop users used to use, and had a very particular groove, and now become a standard for many house producers to use. A very shuffly, makes it sound not so robotic when you're doing 16th hi-hats. Makes it sound a bit groovier, a bit more shuffly. And if you go in to check everything, all the tracks might not be. Doesn't even fit. See here, the actual beat starts there, but obviously the hi-hat doesn't start until there. Make it a bit groovier, so it feels a bit, funkier.
Do you also shuffle the bass line?
Yeah, everything is shuffled. So if we decide to shuffle, if I have 57% shuffle, everything gets shuffled.
Okay.
Otherwise, it's going to start fighting with each other. So it's as shuffly as you can.
She freaks. When I'm kicking up the beat, she freaks. She freaks. She freaks. When I'm kicking up the beat, she freaks. She freaks. She freaks. When I'm kicking up the beat, she freaks. Freak me out. Freak me out. Without a doubt, you're freaking me out. Freak me out. Without a doubt, you're freaking me out.
I mean, on this EQ, we cut a lot of bass from the vocal, because all this frequency here is pretty much useless. It just interferes. That's the policy we have in general. Cut as much bass from everything that don't need bass. From drums, anything. The only thing that needs bass is the kick drum and the bass line, obviously, and maybe some lower tones. But everything else should pretty much cut from 200, downwards. And the same goes for the vocal. And on this particular one, I've just overemphasized the high frequency, especially on the 20K. It just adds a bit more crispness and a bit more, sparkle on top. And again, this is what our favorite limiter. So we use it just to literally pack the vocal right down.
Freak me out.
We're using 6–7 dB.
Freak me out. me out, freak me out, without a doubt, you're freaking me out.
So it's a very basic, normal, this is a 3/4 beat, which is nothing in particular, and a normal standard, cheap, Pro Tools reverb, nothing. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing exclusive to this reverb at all. Many people think, oh, you need a really amazing sound reverb, but I think this sounds more than enough to be in the record. And then we got some other edits.
You're freaking me out.
And this is the sound we've been using quite a lot throughout our production. It's like a popcorn, if you remember that old popcorn record. To emphasize the melodies, making it quite high pitch. We go 2 octaves on each other, just emphasizing the melodies. And then both bit crushed, making it sound a bit more, with more character basically, which is below 5, which what it does, it just converts the sample rate from 44.1, which is standard, to 7.7, which makes it a bit more digital, more crunchy, makes it a bit more nicer to listen to, sticks out more in the mix.
So is there any questions on anything that anyone's looking at the moment?
What kind of mic you use to record a vocal?
This was a Rode, wasn't it?
Rode K2, which is a valve.
Well,
It's a 500-600 euro. It's not nothing amazing. It's a mid-range, decent mic.
I mean, we've used all the U87s and the AKGs and stuff as well. In our room, because we use a set filter, and we've got rid of our vocal booth, so we do all our vocals in a control room as we with headphones. And it just really worked in our room, so I thought it was best for that. We're going to do that.
cool.
Cool thing we tend to do as well is reverse. This is a vocal reversed, and it's what we do is just take the beginning of the verse. You can do that, and then just reverse it. Have a really long reverb, and then reverse it. So when you're introducing things, adds kind of like you get sucked into something, and that's quite. A cool thing to do, especially after the big breakdown. You want to bring the track back in and then next it. Yeah.
She freaks.